Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Carly if you're new, and if you're not new, thank you so much for watching another video. Today I want to talk about what I read in the month of January. So I read 6 books. I read 3 book of the month physical books, and then I read 3 from Kindle Unlimited on my Kindle. And I was proud of the fact that I read 3 book of the month books because I hardly read any last year, so I have a bunch sitting around that I need to get to. And I started off with 1 and just kept reading them throughout the month, so I was excited about that to knock those off my list. And book of the month also does a reading challenge throughout the year, so if you read so many books, you get like awards and you can earn free books and stuff like that. And I didn't even come close to meeting my goals on there last year, so I want to try to do that this year, but we'll see. I use Goodreads and Storygraph to log my reading journey. I have used Goodreads for several years now. I would say this is probably my 7th year using Goodreads, and I enjoy it. I like the fact that they have shelves that you can put different books in different categories. So every year I put the books that I read that year on their own little shelf, and that just makes it more organized for me, and I enjoy that. But they did change some things this year that I don't necessarily like. One of my favorite things was to see what people's reading goals were for the year and all of that, and they don't even show that this year. So I don't like that, and then I don't like the way they changed the yearly goal challenge anyway. So I've been using Storygraph for a couple years now, and it does have more features, which I like. You can see like on a calendar where you read what books throughout that month, which is cool. And then they do have like half-star and quarter-star ratings, whereas Goodreads just has 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there are pros and cons to each. I'll probably end up transitioning to more Storygraph now that I don't like some of the features on Goodreads. But again, I do like keeping them on those shelves because I don't really keep like a reading journal or anything else that shows what I read. So that's a good way for me to keep track of what I read in what year. But anyway, let's get started. So the first book that I read was Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. This again was from Book of the Month, and it was an early release. So I actually read it before it came out, which is nice. That's a feature of Book of the Month. One of the ones I'm getting for this month is an early release as well, so that's cool. But I enjoyed this book okay. I liked Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, and I believe that's the only one I've read by her. So I was looking forward to this. I thought it was kind of slow. Basically, it's about a man whose wife is on her way home one evening, and they're on the phone, and she says that somebody is in the middle of the road, and she wants to get out and help, and he's like, no, don't get out. And she's like, I'm going to get out, but she keeps the phone on, and he never hears from her again. And then it's about a year in the future, and he is a writer, so he's trying to write a book, and he goes to this remote island, and he keeps thinking that he sees her, blah, blah, blah. So I did think it was a little bit slow, and after I read some of the reviews, it kind of like swayed me to thinking I didn't like it as much as I initially thought when I first finished it, because there were a couple twists at the end that were good. One specifically was good that I didn't see coming, but again, it was just kind of slow, but it's not very long. So I still enjoyed it. I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads. Another thing is I haven't been rating my books on Storygraph. I don't know why. I struggle with ratings because like when I initially finish a book, I feel like I liked that book. And then once I go back and think about it more or read other people's opinions, it kind of sways me. So I never really trust my ratings that much. Plus I'm not a harsh rater at all. Like if I enjoy the book, I'll probably give it 4 stars. So I just give them like a general rating on Goodreads and then move on, and maybe sometimes go back and change that depending on how I'm feeling. But so initially I gave this 3 stars, and I'll probably stick with that. The next book I read was The Wedding People by Allison Espach. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Espach. This book got a lot of hype. I saw a lot of people reading it. This was another book of the month book that I got last year that's been sitting around that I wanted to read. I even picked it up once and put it back down almost immediately just because reading on my Kindle is so much simpler. It's not in the mood to read a physical book, but I did pick this back up and I enjoyed it. It's not what I was expecting at all. I really didn't know what to expect, but basically this girl is about to commit suicide and she goes to a hotel that she wants to spend her last night at, and the hotel is being occupied by a wedding party, and she ends up following these people around and kind of getting to know them and becoming close with them. So it's just different. The plot is different and unique. I liked it. It's not really romance, but also not really anything else. I would say it's just like contemporary fiction, but I was expecting more romance for some reason. So I was confused by this, but I did enjoy it. I don't know if I necessarily would have given it all the hype that other people gave it, but I did like it and I gave it 4 stars. Next on my Kindle, I read The Last Party by A.R. Torrey. Also, I believe I'm saying that right. Correct me if I'm wrong. A.R. Torrey. I had seen a lot of people talk about her on Instagram, and I hadn't read any of her books, so I thought they're on Kindle Unlimited. I'll download one and see how it goes. So I had seen somebody post a review of The Last Party and said it was really good, so I downloaded that one. I enjoyed it. So the main character is a mom who you find out pretty early that she kind of lies about things, and she is connected or invested in this killer from several years ago. And I don't want to give too much away, but she kind of recreates some of the things that he does, and it's just very twisted. It does involve kids, so it can be kind of a touchy subject, and I thought it's different from any thriller that I've read, I feel like, because you know what's going to happen through the whole thing, pretty much. There were some twists, of course, but it was just different. But I did enjoy it. I thought it was pretty good, and I gave that one 4 stars. And since I liked that one so much, the second book that I read was A Fatal Affair by her, and this one was good as well. It was about a Hollywood couple who is like the it couple of Hollywood. They're engaged, and the man has a twin who is kind of like a drunk and in and out of rehab and stuff, so he's not the perfect star like the brother is, and somehow they're connected to this mom and son who came to town for a Make-A-Wish trip, and the twin that was a drunk and in and out of rehab is murdered, and he has someone with him and they can't figure out who it is, and then it's just all tied together in a weird, bizarre way. And that one was good. I did like that one. However, I did see the big twist coming. It's not that hard to figure out. So I didn't love that aspect of it, but I did think it was interesting, and there were some other twists that were along the way that I didn't expect. So I did figure out the big twist on that one, but it was still interesting. And both of those books by A.R. Torrey have short chapters, which I love because I can just kind of fly through them. So I gave both of those 4 stars. Again, I may go back and change those later, but I think I'll stick with that for now. I think that was a pretty good rating. Okay, somehow I forgot about the most recent book that I read, which was All the Little Raindrops by Mia Sheridan. And I read this through Kindle Unlimited as well. I saw somebody talk about it, and they said that this was one of their favorite books by Mia Sheridan, so I decided to read it. This is the first book I've read by her, but I did enjoy it. So essentially, these 2 teenagers get abducted and put into cages. One's a boy and one's a girl. And you find out that her mom is dead and his dad is the one that killed her. So there's already some tension there. And then they go through all of this bad stuff in the cages and then eventually get out. This is pretty early on in the book, so I'm not really spoiling anything. And then for the rest of the book, it's set a little bit in the future, and they are trying to figure out how to navigate life after being abducted and trying to figure out what happened to them and if it is still continuing and if these people are still abducting other people. And it was just really interesting. I did also guess a couple of the twists in this one, but not all of them, and there was a lot to it, so it was still pretty good and had a lot of good twists, which is why I ended up giving it 4 stars. But I did enjoy it, and I do recommend that one, especially again if you have Kindle Unlimited. And then the last book that I read is Here One Moment by Leanne Moriarty. And I like her a lot. I have not read her books in a while. I have Apples Never Fall and never ended up reading it. Got it from Book of the Month, and I've seen mixed reviews about that, but I read several of hers when I first started reading about 7 or 8 years ago, and I enjoy her writing, and I think her stories are really good. And this one is the same. It was very interesting. It's about this woman who is on a flight, and she gets up at the beginning of the flight and just starts telling people how they're going to die and what age they're going to die. And of course, everyone starts freaking out. And then some people are like, she is just old and mentally ill. And then some people just don't believe it at all. And then you start to see that things that she predicted come true. So there's about, I want to say 5 or so stories intertwined in this, which is really cool. I always like when they switch perspectives. And I saw somebody review this book and said it would be a good TV show. And I do think it would be a good like limited series where they just do an episode on each passenger that she told their cause of death and age of death thing. I think that would be really interesting, but it was really good, and all the stories kind of ended up connecting, which was cool. And the ending, like the little epilogue, is super, super good. So I definitely recommend this one. I actually gave it 5 stars, which I don't do very often, but I thought it was really good. The ending is what got me, because throughout it, I thought it was really good and interesting, but I loved how things started to connect at the end, and then I loved the little epilogue at the end. So I really enjoyed it, and I recommend it. Out of all the ones I read this month, this would be the one I recommend first. And then the A.R. Torrey books, just because if you like thrillers and you like to read quickly, they are a quick read with the short chapters, and they're on Kindle Unlimited. So if you're into that or if you have that, I recommend those as well. So all in all, it was a good month of reading. I was glad that I read 6 books, because if you've seen my other videos about reading, you know that I was not hitting my goals last year. So I want to get back on track and read more this year. And today is February 2nd, and the book that I started for this month is the last book in the Elsie Silver Chestnut Springs series, which I love. I started reading those, I think they came out 2 years ago. This is the 5th book. Here it is. This is the 5th book. This is Beau's book, and it's called Hopeless. And I actually own this book, and I've had it on my Kindle for over a year and just haven't read it because I don't want it to end. I really like this series a lot. So this is another great recommendation if you like romance, cowboy, all that kind of thing. I like when there's a series that has like 4 or 5 family members, and then they all have their own little story. I think that's so cute. So this one is how that is. So it's all brothers, and they're all kind of, well, they're not all brothers. One of them is a sister, but it's the family, and they all have their own little love story, and it's so cute. And I've heard good things about this one, so I'm excited to read it, but I'll let you know more about it in the February reading wrap up. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you read in the month of January and what you recommend, what your favorite book was, and all that. And I'll see you guys in the next video.